Good afternoon, good evening, whenever, wherever you are listening. Thank you so very much for making me a part of your day. My name is Lee Parr. You might know me as Lego Lee or Lego Lee 329 from Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Patreon, you name it. I am all over the internet, and this is the Brickology podcast, the study of small plastic bricks. How are you doing today? I sincerely hope you are doing great. It is currently pouring rain at my apartment, and it's been rather gloomy the past few days. Hopefully the rain noise isn't too distracting in the background. I can use some of my editing software magic to get rid of the rain noise in the background, but if there is, a consistent raindrop sound in the back of today's episode of Brickology, that is why. And I hope you're also just doing great. I mean, the world is still kind of in a little bit of chaos. Things are trying to, lighten off a bit, but the whole pandemic is still going on, and I hope you are taking all the necessary precautions and everything. And speaking of Brickology and schedules and things being kind of out of whack, last week I uploaded my episode about Lego Power Miners on Wednesday. It was my first ever episode of Brickology that wasn't on a Friday, but today is a Friday because we're back on the normal Brickology schedule train, and it should be that way for the foreseeable future. At some point, I'm sure I'll be busy on a Friday and do another Wednesday episode or something, who knows, but for right now, Brickology is going to stick to its normal planned schedule of one episode a week, always on Fridays, and we're going to continue the alternating pattern of a licensed and then unlicensed theme. So last week was Lego Power Miners, which of course is an unlicensed theme, and this week that means it's time for a licensed theme. And one thing I've noticed with the streams for my Brickology episodes, by far the most 3 streamed episodes of Brickology are all my episodes of Lego Star Wars. Now, there's tons of sub-themes within Lego Star Wars, so it's going to be easy for me to make a lot of different episodes about Star Wars. However, I don't want Brickology to just be a Star Wars Lego podcast, because Lego is a lot more than just Star Wars, but at the same time, I do recognize a lot of my fan base, especially on Instagram, is really turned towards Lego Star Wars. They follow me because of Lego Star Wars, and they don't really care about other Lego themes besides Star Wars, and I get that. So I am going to be doing a lot of Star Wars content on Brickology. The first ever episode of Brickology was about Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. The 4th episode, which is my most streamed episode of Brickology to date, was about Star Wars The Clone Wars. That kind of coincided the release of the new season of Star Wars The Clone Wars. And then the Open Up Season 2, I did the first episode of this season about Star Wars Episode 2. And I'm planning on doing every sub-theme for Lego Star Wars in chronological order, maybe besides some video game stuff that will be an episode later down the line. But besides that, everything for movies and TV shows will be in chronological order from here on out. And like I said, I don't want there to be too many episodes about Star Wars for Brickology, but there will be 2 a season. So every season is going to be 10 episodes. So that means 2 episodes a season will be about Lego Star Wars. So I obviously already did Star Wars Episode 2, and I already did the Clone Wars, so we don't have to do that one again, obviously. So continuing along the train of chronological order, that means today is Lego sets based off Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And for you guys who might not be catching my drift here, that means the next one will be Solo, then Star Wars Rebels, Rogue One, the original trilogy, Mandalorian, etc. We'll continue in chronological order with 2 Star Wars episodes of Brickology every season. Those will be the 1st and the 5th episodes of those respective seasons. So the next Star Wars episode will be the premiere for Season 3, which will be in a couple of months from now. So you have to be patient for the next episode of Star Wars from Brickology, but today we get to talk about Lego Star Wars Episode 3 sets based off the movie Revenge of the Sith. Now, of course, one thing I always do here on Brickology is before I talk about the Lego sets based off something, especially when it's a licensed theme, we have to talk about the license itself and that source material. Now, if you want to know more about the Star Wars prequels and their history and the history of the prequels toys, listen to the first ever episode of Brickology, the pilot for Brickology, the episode I did on Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. That episode is still the longest episode of Brickology to date, and I really dove deep. I talked for probably 20 minutes about the history of Star Wars and Star Wars toys. I don't want to repeat myself here, and obviously it's a shameless plug for me to tell you to listen to a different episode of this podcast, but if you want to get some more background information on Star Wars toys, especially toys relating to the prequel trilogy, listen to that episode, and also listen to episode episode about episode 2, because they'll give you even more information about this whole thing. And we're completing the prequel trilogy today with episode 3. And it's now time to talk about the history of episode 3 itself, Revenge of the Sith. Now, Revenge of the Sith was released in May of 2005. Now, the first 2 prequels movies I saw in theaters. I have no memory of seeing episode 1 because I was just a little bit over 2 years old. I have some very vague memories of seeing episode 2 because I was 5 years old, but it's very faint memories. Episode 3, however, 2005, I was kind of coming up on the end, I think, of 2nd grade. It was the summer before 3rd grade, and I had a lot of vivid memories from this year. Like, I was 8 years old, and I have a lot of actual, real memories from this year. And I think this is kind of like one of the first years that I have memories of going to see movies in theaters and memories of getting a ton of Lego sets. So this one's going to be a little bit more of a vivid memory from me as opposed to the first 2 movies from the Star Wars prequels. So this movie was released in May of 2005, and it was, at the time, and still is, the last George Lucas Star Wars film. And I think everyone thought this was the last Star Wars movie ever. George Lucas is like, I ain't doing more of these. Like, I'm doing this movie, and then we're done. And that's what it was looking like for, 7 years until Disney purchased Lucasfilm in 2012. And I remember seeing this movie in theaters at least 4 times. It could have been more, my memory is still a little bit fuzzy, but I definitely remember seeing this movie in theaters at least 4 times. And over the summer, my mom and my parents, they were busy. And I remember we would have a babysitter take us to the movie theater and just kind of dump us to watch Star Wars Episode 3, my brothers and I. We would just be dumped at the movie theater to go watch this movie yet again because we loved it so much. So I saw this movie in theaters a lot. I have so many great memories of this film, and unlike the last 2 prequels where I talked about those movies being, not super high quality and not super well loved, this movie actually is relatively well received, especially compared to the other movies in the prequel trilogy. It's by far the best reviewed of the 3. The other 2 have mediocre to somewhat bad reviews. This movie has pretty good to actually very good reviews, and it's definitely the best prequel film. It's extremely noticeable. I think it's even noticeable from the beginning of the movie. The first shot of this movie, it's all CGI, but it's a very cool computer CGI simulation of a tracking shot with the 2 Jedi interceptors during the Battle of Coruscant. It's an awesome shot of an awesome action scene to begin this movie. And the direction in this film, George Lucas, he definitely learned and upped his game from the last 2 movies. This one has a much better direction. The dialogue scenes, they're still kind of weird and awkward, but they're not quite as stilted. The shots are much better. The camera work is a lot more dynamic. And overall, I'd say this movie is better paced than the first 2 prequels films and has a lot more emotion. There's still some really bad dialogue. There's still some weird acting. Not everything in this movie is perfect. Do not get me wrong. It's definitely, no movie from the original trilogy of Star Wars. It's not really saying a whole lot to say that this movie is better than episodes 1 and 2, which are just, not super good movies to begin with. But this movie, I think, universally is considered the quote-unquote the good prequel. I think that's what people would call this. This is the good prequel. And 15 years later, it's crazy this movie is already 15 years old, but 15 years later, this movie is iconic. This is an iconic film, and the internet loves this movie. I think the reason the internet loves this movie is because people who were my age, like 8 years old, 8 to 10, maybe young teens, when they saw this movie in theaters for the first time, those people are now some of the bigger voices on the internet. They're in their early 20s to mid 20s. They are the ones who run all these big YouTube channels and podcasts like Brickology, meme pages, etc. Those people are the ones who grew up with this film. So Prequel Memes, which I think Prequel Memes, the majority of Prequel Memes are just from Revenge of the Sith. This movie has exploded online, especially in terms of memes. People quote this movie all the time. This movie is now iconic. I don't really know if the first 2 prequels are as iconic. They definitely have some iconic moments, but some of their iconic moments are actually more notorious than, or more, like infamous instead of being, actually good moments. But this movie is iconic for a lot of reasons. It's highly quotable, and I would say this movie at this point in time, especially after the sequels, came and were a little bit disappointing, this movie is beloved. It's a beloved film, which is something you definitely cannot say about the first two prequels. And this movie also had a bigger marketing push than Attack of the Clones. Now, Phantom Menace had an insane marketing push because that was the first Star Wars movie in 16 years at the time in 1999. You know, it had been a very long time since anything Star Wars came out. And like I said, listen to my episode about Phantom Menace to learn more about just kind of the toys and the ridiculous amount of marketing that film received. But Attack of the Clones, they really toned it back, and they kind of, you know, didn't have nearly as much stuff surrounding that film before it came out. But for Revenge of the Sith, I think it wasn't quite Phantom Menace levels, but they really pumped this movie out. You know, at the time it was going to be the last Star Wars film. They really wanted to go out on a bang, and you can see that with the representation and all the marketing material, all the promotional stuff, and of course the toys and the Lego sets. So in my Attack of the Clones episode a few weeks ago, I mentioned that all time, there I think was like, 19 total Attack of the Clones sets. Like, I actually got to spend a good amount of time on each set in that particular episode because there just weren't too many Attack of the Clones sets. Well, the Revenge of the Sith episode today, and I'm going to talk about the sets here in just a minute, it's not going to be like that at all. Because there's a lot of sets. The initial wave is much bigger than the initial wave of Attack of the Clones sets, and the subsequent waves that have come out over the years since this film's release are much bigger and way more frequent than Attack of the Clones. And all told, according to Brickset.com, this movie has 46 total sets, which is more than double the amount that the Attack of the Clones received. So there are a lot of Revenge of the Sith sets. I'm really going to dive deep into the initial first wave and then anything super unique that came out since then. But there's also a pretty big chunk of remakes from this film that I probably won't focus on quite as much because if I did, this episode would be hours long. I don't think anybody wants this episode to be too long, but it's time now to talk about the Lego sets based off Lego Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. So it's spring of 2005, and we get these new Revenge of the Sith sets. They have this cool box art with Darth Vader's helmet and some lava on them. Really good stuff. Revenge of the Sith has some very good marketing material, and the box arts look very good, and the wave of Lego sets is quite large and has a pretty wide range of various prices. The first set we're going to talk about here today is the Clone Scout Walker. This was a $10 set with 108 pieces. Now, Clone Scout Walker is not really the real name of this particular vehicle. You all probably know this vehicle as the AT-RT, which stands for All-Terrain Recon Transport. It's the small little clone chicken walker type thing that is open air. So it fits one clone trooper on the back. It's open air like a speeder, but has two walker legs like an AT-ST from Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And this is not the last time in today's episode that we're going to talk about the AT-RT. It will definitely pop up again here later on this episode of Brickology, but it was the first ever version of this vehicle because this was the first film the vehicle ever appeared in, and it had a very nice printed piece at the top of its design for some added detail, and it included one Phase 2 clone trooper, which had a brand new head mold, and the original Phase 2 clone troopers, like the Phase 1 clone troopers that came with the sets from Attack of the Clones, the visor was like an indentation. It was kind of weird. You could like see through the indentation in their helmet, and you put a black headpiece on, so when you put the helmet over the black headpiece, it looked like it had a black visor, but it was actually an indentation. Kind of a strange design. I'm not really sure why Lego did that at first, and they did change that in the future, but that is just kind of how the original Clone Trooper figures worked. So that is the Clone Scout Walker. Really good deal for this price, and I think this is one of the better scaled AT-RTs. Lego has really they've done a very weird thing with the AT-RT. The AT-RT has been tiny, the AT-RT has been huge, and this one I think is somewhere in between. And actually, when I did an AT-RT comparison post on my Instagram a few weeks ago, everyone was like, actually the 2005 one seems to be the best scale, and I'm inclined to agree. This is a very solid Clone Scout Walker / AT-RT set. Now, for some reason, the next set is actually the next set in terms of set number. I don't normally mention set numbers, but this set is a higher set number, but it's a smaller set. Not really sure why that happened, but it is the $7 53-piece Darth Vader's transformation. One, I think it's kind of interesting that this scene was a set in the first ever wave of Revenge of the Sith sets. The reason I think it's so interesting is because this came out before the movie. Now, I don't think it was a huge spoiler to really, announce that Anakin Skywalker was going to become Darth Vader. That's obviously what the entire prequel trilogy was leading up to. Everybody knew that coming in, but this is like one of the last scenes in the entire film, and it's spoiled in a toy that came out a couple months before the movie was officially released. I just think that's kind of funny, and obviously I just don't think, Disney or anybody who makes kind of toys like this now would do anything of this sort. They would never spoil something like this. I mean, they still haven't had an Emperor toys of any kind from The Rise of Skywalker because they didn't want to spoil that reveal in the film. So that's just a whole interesting thing about this set. And this set is a very simple set. It's a small little base plate piece that has a droid and a transformation feature where you get a Wispy Anakin Skywalker who's all burnt up, and you had Darth Vader. You could put Wispy Anakin on a little pedestal, spin it around, and he turns into Darth Vader. Has the little medical droid off to the side with some tools to operate on, and yeah, that's about it. It was a very small set, but I have fond memories of this set because $7 sets, especially when you were 8 years old at the time, like I was, were the best kind of Lego set because I could actually afford them back in the day. Now for $15 from this first wave, we had the Droid Tri-Fighter with 148 pieces, almost exactly a perfect price per piece there. This set included a Buzz Droid that was a brick-built piece with some printed kind of top of cylinder cone type pieces, and it had a nice saw blade, and you could put the Buzz Droid in the center quote-unquote cockpit of this Tri-Fighter. Now, the Droid Tri-Fighter in the films is not actually a vehicle for the droids, it's just a big droid itself, kind of like a Buzz Droid. It is its own being. So it's kind of weird that they added cockpit to this particular design, and it's actually not the last time they'll do this. They'll do this a couple more times with this particular design, which is very strange, but it is a large droid in the universe. This set had a cool design. I mean, it's a very uniquely shaped thing in the films, and I think Lego did a very good job of representing this in Lego form. It had a lot of sand and dark blue pieces with some stickers and added details. I think for $15, this was definitely an absolute win of a set. Now for $20 with 111 pieces, great little piece count, but a really bad price per piece, is the General Grievous Chase. This was the first ever set to include General Grievous, who is now a very iconic character, probably for some of the wrong reasons. I think General Grievous is actually one of the dumber villains we ever see in Star Wars. I explained this in my episode of the Clone Wars, that General Grievous originally appears in the 2003 Clone Wars series, and he is awesome in that series. He is pretty horrifying, really cool character, and I wasn't really following like the trailers and stuff at the time of release of this film, so I remember going into this movie being absolutely blown away that that character that I liked from the cartoon show was in the live action Star Wars movie, and I was so hyped to see General Grievous on the big screen. And General Grievous himself has a super cool looking design. He holds 4 lightsabers, his hands can spin around. Everything about him seems cool until he opens, well, he doesn't really open his mouth, but he starts speaking, and he has one of the dumber sounding voices ever in Star Wars, and he continually coughs because of a weird little storyline in the later Clone Wars show. General Grievous is pretty dumb. His dialogue is dumb. Most things about him are dumb, and he's a complete and utter coward. The man just runs away from everything and then does not even remotely stand a chance against Obi-Wan during their battle scene. General Grievous, to me, I think was a big wasted potential of a character. Not as bad as like Captain Phasma or someone from the sequel trilogy, but overall Grievous just wasn't as cool as he could have been. However, this set is pretty cool. You get Grievous's wheel bike, which was mostly made of a printed transparent piece, but it looked pretty cool, and it had some bionicle pieces for legs. Remember, it had the kind of like the little power driller thing was part of the leg, which was very interesting. And you also got Obi-Wan on Boga. This is still to this day the only time Boga has ever been made in Lego form. And Bogo used some very similar pieces to the original Lego dinosaur pieces from the early 2000s. Definitely talk about those on a future episode of Brickology. He was a pretty cool Boga. It was, still 2005 level of detail. He didn't have any print or anything. He just kind of had a weird molded head to represent this creature, but a very cool creature, and it made for a cool battle scene. And even though the price per piece is really bad here, Boga had some big pieces, which made the price pretty decent. And this is just a cool battle scene and a cool set. And I think it's very unfortunate that LEGO has never made Boga again. LEGO has also never made General Grievous with a cape again. He had a nice printed cape piece in this set, and I believe this is the only time that piece ever came in a set, which is a little unfortunate. Also, for $20 from this wave with a much better price per piece, 202 pieces, comes one of the best deals LEGO has ever made. They called this set the Jedi Starfighter and Vulture Droid. Now, Jedi Starfighter is not an accurate name. This is a Jedi Interceptor and Vulture Droid. This is the first ever representation of the Jedi Interceptor in LEGO form, and you'll definitely hear more about this vehicle in today's episode. But not only did this come with Anakin's yellow Jedi Interceptor, it also came with a Vulture Droid, which is awesome, which is crazy also because in 2014, both of these respective builds were their own $25 sets. So to get both of them in that year, you had to pay $50, but in 2005, you could get both of them in the same package deal of a set for just $20. That is absolutely amazing and one of the best deals ever. Perfect price per piece, two great builds, made for a great battle scene. I remember getting this set back in 2005 and I was so lit to get this set because it was such a fantastic value, and as a kid there was so much play opportunity to actually have two things that could chase each other and swoosh around. This is a great set. The only flaw really is that R2-D2 couldn't really fit into the Interceptor himself. Unfortunately, he just came with his head, not his body. So that was definitely a letdown, but everything else about this set was superb. Next up here, for $30 with 282 pieces, we had the Ultimate Lightsaber Duel. And, this obviously recreates the iconic final battle scene between Anakin and Obi-Wan on the lava planet of Mustafar. And this set was interesting, to say the least. I don't really think it's super recognizable. It kind of has some of that Mustafar shape, but it doesn't really represent any one particular portion specifically. I kind of wish they had maybe made it look a little bit more like the lava river or the high ground or the, big superstructure that they, fight on, which is kind of closely what this resembles, but for the most part, it's just kind of like an amalgamation of different portions of Mustafar and that battle scene. And this set had a very odd play feature, kind of similar to some sports sets, like how in the sports sets, listen to episode 2 of Brickology about LEGO sports, but in the sports sets, especially for like basketball or hockey or the soccer ones, like the goalies in some of those sets or people like guarding the rims, the basketball sets, had long Technic rods to control those figures. You could kind of like slide them in and out and move them up and down to deflect things. Both of the Jedi in this set, Anakin and Obi-Wan, were on very similar things, and you and a friend could have the two characters duel against one another. So you had their lightsabers and you could kind of hit one another and try to knock the other person off. It's kind of interesting and it makes for a very fun play feature, but it's also a very odd play feature. And that brings us into the next very odd thing about this set. This set introduces us to the light up lightsaber figure. Now, if you're a newer or a younger LEGO fan and you're not super familiar with these 2005 era LEGO Star Wars sets, you're probably like, what on earth are you talking about, Lee? What is the light up lightsaber figure? Well, simply, they had light up lightsabers. These figures had light bricks built into them, but it also kind of ruined the figure. So the figure's torso was all this one piece, and the arm was a very specialized piece that had the lightsaber already molded into it, and it completely killed any of the customization aspects of a figure. You could not remove this stuff. And by pushing on the figure's head, the lightsaber would light up. It was, an interesting idea, and it worked out pretty well. And depending on what color of lightsaber it is, so obviously Anakin and Obi-Wan both had blue blades, you put the blue blade piece into the lightsaber, it would light up that color with a small little LED light in the lightsaber piece hilt itself. It was an interesting idea. It was very gimmicky, and the boxes had little things where you could like test it out, you know, put your finger in and push down on their head to see it light up. I mean, it was an interesting idea. It was definitely an interesting idea, and I can see why LEGO would do something like this, because LEGO has been trying out new gimmicks for decades now. But this one definitely had some backlash from the fan community, and it only lasted 1 year, and even one set we'll talk about later on in today's episode had a remake without this light up feature. And it was pretty much only for these Revenge of the Sith sets. They also made a TIE Fighter set that came with Darth Vader that had a light up lightsaber feature, so one original trilogy set also had this feature, but there was a lot of backlash from the fan community. It made these figures less valuable because they didn't really feel like normal LEGO figures. They kind of felt like a weird specialized thing that didn't quite fit in with the rest of the bunch. So while it was an interesting thing and it's LEGO trying, you know, out new features, it definitely did not pay off, and LEGO completely ultimately canceled the idea of the light up lightsaber figure. But we'll definitely hear more about those particular figures throughout the rest of talking about this initial wave of Revenge of the Sith sets. Also for $30, we had the Wookie Attack with 366 pieces. Very good value here, and kind of like the Anakin, Jedi Interceptor, and Vulture Droid set, this was a fantastic value of a set because it made a really good battle scene. This set included the Wookie Flyer, which is the only time this particular vehicle has ever been made in LEGO form. You got some Wookie Warrior minifigures that looked super cool. Also though, you also got the Corporate Alliance Tank Droid. Now, the colors for this tank droid were like sand blue and transparent orange. The colors were completely off. This is not the color that this vehicle was in the movie. It's a very like gray looking vehicle in the movie, so I'm not entirely sure why LEGO made this particular vehicle look like this, but it was a pretty cool Corporate Alliance tank droid in the first time that this vehicle ever appeared in LEGO form. And we also got a Dwarf Spider Droid, and this kind of helped to make a Battle of Kashyyyk display scene, and it's all very good. There's some battle droid figures included with this set. You have different fighting factions. This was a really good battle scene type set that LEGO just doesn't really make this sort of thing anymore. I think this is a great set, and personally my brother actually got this set, so I played with this set some when I was younger. It wasn't my personal set, and I pretty much have owned every single set we've talked about so far on Brickology today besides the Ultimate Lightsaber Duel. I never got that set, and some of the upcoming sets are going to be sets that I've always wanted and never got my hands on, and I'm definitely going to be crying a little bit at this episode because I don't have some of these particular LEGO sets and they're really expensive on eBay today. But moving on, the next set we're going to talk about here is the $40 396 piece ARC 170 Starfighter. Now the ARC 170 is a really cool ship. It's kind of like a precursor to the X-Wing, but has its own unique flair. It has S-foils like the X-Wing and had a similar play feature to the X-Wing where you could twist a gear and the S-foils would open up. Great play feature for the LEGO set. But instead of having, you know, an X-Wing, it actually kind of had a W-wing on each side. There were 6 total wings. It looked very cool. Also, this particular ship could hold a fair number of figures. There were 3 individual cockpits for clone pilots. The one at the back was kind of like a gunner placement, and there's 2 main cockpits at the front, and even in the back middle there was also space for an astromech droid, which is very cool, and all of those figures were included with this set. And my family, we had 2 of this particular set. I had one, and my older brother also had one, so we have 2 of this set in our collection, but unfortunately both of them have been destroyed. The engines in this set were made with the big Mars mission style of wheel piece. There were some printed Technic pieces from the Throwbots line, I believe, to kind of recreate the engines as well. Some great part usage on this set, a great looking ship, and a really good representation in LEGO form of this set for for a really good deal. We'll talk about the deal of the remake of this set in a few minutes here when we get to the 2010s LEGO Star Wars Episode 3 sets. Now, the next set we're going to talk about here today for 376 pieces, but ironically $10 more than the 396 piece set, the ARC 170. This is the $50 Wookie Catamaran, the only time this particular vehicle has ever been made in LEGO form. This came, of course, with the Wookie Catamaran. It also came with the Republic Swamp Speeder. We'll hear more from the Swamp Speeder later on in this episode of Brickology, but Wookie Catamaran, this is it. And this set also came with the first ever LEGO representation of Luminara Unduli, who was a great LEGO figure, had a really cool headdress piece that is used later on in the future for remakes of this figure, but unfortunately at the time, this was of course one of those light up figures, which was a lot of people's dismay. People were not super happy that the first ever Luminara figure was a light up figure, and she was completely exclusive to this set. This set also came with Yoda, who was the exact same version from the Attack of the Clones sets. You also got Chewbacca, who was no different from the prior versions of Chewbacca in LEGO form, and you got some clone troopers in this set with some green markings, and those clone troopers are completely exclusive to this set to this day. And I remember I always wanted this set for a long time. I've been wanting this set for like 15 years now, and I really wanted this set when I was a kid. I never got it. My brothers never got it. No one in my family ever got this set. It was a very expensive set for me when I was a kid. And, you know, I think we valued spaceships more than Wookie Catamarans, but it's still a very unique vehicle and a very different stylish ship in the Star Wars universe. And kind of funny, like very recently, I was over at a friend's house, and she was showing me some of the LEGO sets that her family had when they were kids, and they had the box, the original box of this set. She pulled it out and my jaw dropped. I was super excited. I was like, oh my gosh, does she have this set? Can I buy this off of her? And then she contacted me later and I was like, yeah, there were no pieces in that box. It was just none of the pieces to this set. So they had the box, but none of the pieces. So that was kind of tragic, and my hopes and dreams crashed and burned there for just a second. So that was pretty sad, but it is still a great set, and I would love to get this set someday. It's just so expensive online, which is very unfortunate. Speaking of expensive online, the next set, the final big set, the flagship set of this initial Revenge of the Sith wave, was the $90 801 piece clone turbo tank. This vehicle is also known as the Juggernaut in the Star Wars universe, and similar to the ARC 170 Starfighter, it used the Life on Mars big plastic wheel piece, and this set also had a fair number of side builds as well. You got a Bark speeder that used some shield pieces at the front, which looked very cool. You also had a clone trooper with a jetpack. That's kind of weird. There were no clone troopers with jetpacks in Revenge of the Sith, but a cool, concept of a figure. And it also had a battle droid cannon, and the battle droids were also equipped with a small little cannon build that kind of looked like an E-web from The Empire Strikes Back. And this set, I think, some of the one of the most exciting things about this set was, one, it came with one of the clone scout troopers, which was very cool, but it was also the first ever LEGO set to include Samuel L. Jackson's iconic character Mace Windu, and unfortunately, yet again, he was a light-up minifigure, which I definitely think made a lot of people mad at the time, because Mace Windu is iconic. Everybody wants Mace Windu, so to finally get a Mace Windu minifigure, but he's like not a real LEGO figure because he's one of these weird light-up figures, was definitely a letdown to a lot of people during the release of this set. However, in 2006, a year later, LEGO kind of made up for that, because they re-released this set with some slight changes. For 813 pieces, same price, they re-released this set with Mace Windu, but it wasn't the light-up version. It was a normal version of the Mace Windu figure. So that was very cool, and LEGO definitely probably viewed that some people were not super pleased with these light-up Jedi minifigures, that they went back, kind of re-released this set with a more normal minifigure. So that's very cool and very unique, because I can't think of too many times LEGO has just re-released a set very recently after it came out. That doesn't happen super often. So very cool on LEGO's part to do that. I personally don't have this set. I had the 2016 version that we'll talk about here later in this episode, and I'm happy with the version that I have, but I do know a lot of people have a lot of nostalgia for this original clone turbo tank, and it still holds up very well today. Now, there's one more set from 2005 that we need to talk about here for Revenge of the Sith. The $50 567 piece The Ultimate Space Battle that was a Target exclusive. This is a weird set. This is kind of like one of those like 2-in-1 sets, but it wasn't really a 2-in-1 set. Essentially here, this set came with Anakin's Jedi Interceptor and the Vulture Droid, which was already a $20 set. You got an additional Vulture Droid. You also got the Droid Tri-Fighter, which was a $15 set, and then an exclusive build of Obi-Wan's Jedi Interceptor, which was pretty much the same design as Anakin's, just recolored. All of this was packaged together in a $50 set that created the fitting title of Ultimate Space Battle. Interesting set, very odd. I don't think LEGO really does anything like this anymore. Sometimes they'll, throw a couple of battle packs or something together in one like 2-in-1 box set. But this set in particular was the only set I can ever think of that really did this particular thing. And I think it's pretty cool, and I definitely wish I got this set. But I have the remakes of everything that came with this set, so I don't really need it for my collection, but I do think it was a pretty cool set and a pretty cool idea. Now we can talk about the rest of the 2000s. 2005 obviously had a huge push for Revenge of the Sith. The rest of the 2000s, there's just kind of random Revenge of the Sith sets that came out here and there. Like in 2006, we only got one Revenge of the Sith set with the V-Wing Starfighter. This was a $10 set, 118 pieces, had a clone pilot that was a cheaper way to get him from the ARC 170 Starfighter, a droid head but not the body, and the first ever representation of the V-Wing in LEGO form. They also remade this vehicle in an Imperial version in 2011, which was different and kind of strange. I didn't really like that set. I actually ranted about that set on my YouTube channel almost a decade ago if you want to go watch that video. But an interesting V-Wing Starfighter set. In 2007, LEGO introduced us to the Star Wars Battle Pack, which of course are still ridiculously popular today in LEGO. And this was the first ever Star Wars Battle Packs, and they were both based off Revenge of the Sith. For $10, which they were $10 back then, not $15 like they are now, for 57 pieces, we had the Clone Troopers Battle Pack. Had 4 clones, and a bark speeder, and a small little turret build. Great battle pack, iconic, old style Clone Trooper helmets, yes. Old style blasters, yes, but still a very, very cool Clone Troopers Battle Pack. Also, we had the Droid Battle Pack. $10, 102 pieces, 4 battle droids, 3 super battle droids, so 7 figures for a $10 set, and a pretty generous droid character carrier vehicle with a single trooper aerial platform, aka a STAP. This was a great set as well. Obviously not as iconic because battle droids just aren't as cool as clone troopers, and the battle droids at this time still had the sideways arms that looked kind of awkward when they were holding their blasters, but besides that, a very, very good battle droid battle pack, and these were the first ever LEGO battle packs, and they were great. And they really kicked off something that LEGO has continued to push for over a decade now. Next up for 2007, we got General Grievous's Starfighter, a $20 232-piece set. This included General Grievous and his ship and nothing else. No side builds, no other minifigures, just the Starfighter, the first ever representation of this vehicle in LEGO form. It was remade just 3 years later, but based off Star Wars The Clone Wars, and it's going to be remade again in 2020 this summer, and the first time it will be based off Revenge of the Sith, again 13 years later. Interesting ship, never been my favorite ship, but it's not half bad, and it was another way to get the original General Grievous minifigure. This is before they made the new molds for the Clone Wars version. He was white back in the day, and he had a normal minifigure head and looked kind of funky, but he still worked pretty well. Finally, for 2007, we had the Jedi Starfighter. Again, they keep calling them Jedi Starfighters, but it was a Jedi Interceptor. So Jedi Starfighter with Hyperdrive ring. This was a $50 set with 575 pieces. It included Obi-Wan and a brand new exclusive Kit Fisto minifigure at the time. It's the blue Jedi Interceptor that Obi-Wan flies to Utapau in the film, and it also came with the Hyperdrive ring. This is the first time we ever got a Hyperdrive Hyperdrive ring in Lego form. 10 years later, in 2017, they made the Hyperdrive ring with Obi-Wan Jedi Starfighter from Attack of the Clones, which we talked about in the Attack of the Clones episode, but this was the first ever Hyperdrive ring in Lego form. And I remember I traded my friend for this set, but I gave him some like random Lego pieces, and he just gave me the Jedi Interceptor itself, but he had destroyed the Hyperdrive ring. So I like own half of this set, but not the complete set. And it's also, I destroyed the Jedi Interceptor, and I kind of want to see if I can either rebuild or maybe just buy this set again on eBay so I can complete the collection of all the different colors, because I have the other three that Lego has made, but not this one built in my collection. Fast forward to year 2008, we got the first ever representation of the AT-AP Walker. This was a $40 set with 392 pieces. AT-AP stands for All-Terrain Attack Pod, and it came with the vehicle, the Walker, and 2 Shock Trooper figures, and that was that. The AT-AP, I think, is one of the uglier walkers. It kind of looks like the butt of the AT-TE, and then it has this weird tripod leg that extends down so it can shoot its cannon. That's pretty much it. It's a weird walker, and for some reason, Lego really seems to like this walker, and you're going to hear about it a couple more times when we talk about the 2010s era of Episode 3 sets, which is what we're moving on to now, because there was no Revenge of the Sith sets in 2009. So the 2010s, there's a lot of remakes, and I'm not going to focus too heavily on the remakes. This episode is already looking pretty long, and if I focus too much on all of these remakes, this episode would be way too long. I don't think anybody wants that, but I will mention everything and, do a very brief synopsis as much as I can. But here we go with the ARC 170 Starfighter. This set was $60 with 396 pieces. And oddly enough, that's the exact same piece count that the 2005 version of the ARC 170 Starfighter had. However, just 5 years later, it had jumped in price $20, aka 50%, from $40 to $60. So that was a ridiculous increase in price. Now I will say, the 2010 version is sleeker, has a better design, and it's slightly bigger. So it's a little bit of a price jump, makes some sense, but that big doesn't make any sense at all. It came with 2 clone pilots, and they actually updated the clone pilots. The original clone pilots weren't super accurate, but the new ones had more accurate helmets with printed on visors to make them actually look like the figures from the movie. So that's very cool. It also came with Kit Fisto, which was actually a more expensive way to get Kit Fisto as opposed to the 2007 Hyperdrive wing set that we just talked about here. And this is the last time they made this vehicle. Lego, what you doing, man? Please make another ARC 170 Starfighter, because I destroyed my old one. I didn't get this 2010 version. I do not have an ARC 170 Starfighter built in my collection. I really hope Lego makes this vehicle again. I would love to see it be made yet again. UCS, question mark? Probably not going to happen, but I'd love to see this vehicle in UCS version as well. Also for 2010, we had the Republic Swamp Speeder for $30, 176 pieces. Big oof on the price of this set. That is almost 20 cents per piece. Awful, awful deal. Now, this was a remake of the vehicle that came with the aforementioned Wookie Catamaran set, but there was no Wookie Catamaran with this set. It was just the Swamp Speeder itself. It came with a Clone Trooper, which is still the old style with the weird, indentation visor, but an exclusive brand new Barris Ophi minifigure, 2 battle droids, and 1 super battle droid. It also had wheels on the bottom and a pretty cool mechanism to actually have this thing be able to kind of hover along the swamps, obviously in your imagination. It was a good design, just the price was utterly ridiculous. I have no idea where $30 came from, and it was a retail exclusive to Toys R Us back in the day. Rest in peace, Toys R Us. And then that summer, we got Palpatine's Shuttles. This is actually not a remake. This is a brand new ship for Lego, and the only time they've ever made this vehicle in Lego form. It was a 592-piece set for $60, and it included Wispy, Darth Vader, the burnt-up Anakin Skywalker, Palpatine, a pilot, and a medical Droid. I got this set on eBay a couple of years ago for a very good deal, new and sealed box, which is super exciting, and I'm glad to finally have this ship in my collection. It has a great landing gear play feature. The inside is pretty cool, and it interestingly uses an Alpha Team cockpit piece, which I can't think of any other LEGO Star Wars sets using that cockpit piece, so that is very unique. However, this set has one of the weirdest features I've ever seen in my life. There's a Darth Vader transformation feature inside this shuttle. There's a feature with some rubber pieces, and you can put Darth Vader's helmet on Wispy Anakin's body, and he becomes Darth Vader. Which, you know, it's not a terrible feature, it doesn't work great, but it's not awful. It just makes no sense, because it doesn't happen in a shuttle in the movie. It happens in that tower on Coruscant with all the rain and the V-wings flying around it. It's so strange to me that for some reason LEGO decided to include a Darth Vader transformation set essentially inside the interior of a vehicle, when I think the interior of this vehicle could have been used for something much better than this. I kind of want to modify my version to make something cooler than a very inaccurate play feature on the inside of this particular ship. There were no Revenge of the Sith sets in the year 2011, but 2012 we got a couple. In the winter we had Anakin's Jedi Interceptor. Was a $40 set with 300 exactly pieces, so not a very good price per piece. And it's included Anakin's green Jedi Interceptor, the one that he flies to Mustafar at the end of the movie. And this is the only time I've ever gotten the dark green version of this Interceptor. And the cool thing about this design in particular is it's the first time they ever made a Jedi Interceptor that was compatible with the droid figure. They actually made space. You could literally put R2-D2 inside the Interceptor, which was a very cool play feature. It also included a small playset version of Anakin and Obi-Wan's final duel on the Mustafar lava river. It had those two droids, the little platform that Obi-Wan and Anakin, they stand on the droid and the little platform. You could have them duel, and it was a pretty cool small little display scene that went off to the side. Kind of a weird set though, because it's like a $25-ish set of the Jedi Interceptor, and then probably like a $10 set of the little duel packaged together to make an overpriced $40 set that was a retail exclusive. Great set though. I liked this set a lot. I remember reviewing this set back in the day. Really cool set, and I still have the Interceptor built in my collection. Summer of 2012, a Toys R Us exclusive set for $90 with 645 pieces, another big oof on the price, is Palpatine's arrest. This was a playset, of course, of Palpatine's arrest scene from the film, which is obviously a very iconic scene. It does come with a small little platform for the ship Anakin flies to the scene. You also had a door that could open up, and then it's Palpatine's office, which is very cool. You had some window exploding play features. It made for a very cool display piece scene, the representation of the scene, kind of similar to Snoke's throne room or Palpatine's throne room, any of those similar sets. And this set came with some dope minifigures. Every figure from the scene was included in the set. So Jedi figures, you got Anakin Skywalker, Mace Windu, Kit Fisto, Sassy 10, and Agent Kolar. All of those figures were included with this set. So 5 Jedi in one set. That is pretty awesome. And of course, you got Chancellor Palpatine in this set. Of course, there was a play feature to reveal his hidden Sith lightsaber. And this set was voted by my fans on Instagram as the best ever set based off of Revenge of the Sith. And honestly, it's not my personal favorite, but I don't really disagree. It's a fantastic set, and I really want this set. And for some reason, I had money, and you know, this is like the peak of my YouTube. I had plenty of money. I definitely could have purchased this set. I just didn't. I didn't get this set, and I don't know why to this day, and this set is very expensive online now. So really disappointing that I never got this set. It definitely makes me sad every time I see this set, because I'm like, I really want that set, but I never got my hands on it, which just sucks, man. It sucks. I really wish I had this set, and I think if I'm ever gonna have to get it, either wait for a remake, which I'm not sure is gonna happen anytime soon, bite the bullet and spend a ton of money, or just pray and hope for a much, much better deal on eBay here someday. Okay. Time to move on to 2014. There are no Revenge of the Sith sets in 2013, but 2014, there was a lot of Revenge of the Sith sets because this was the year that Revenge of the Sith was coming out in 3D, released in theaters. Now, I've already mentioned this in the episode 1 and episode 2 episodes of Brickology. The whole 3D re-release thing was scrapped when Disney purchased Lucasfilm in fall of 2012. But Fox, when they still owned Lucasfilm, they're going to re-release episode 2 in 2013, which is why LEGO made an entire wave of episode 2 sets that year. And while all the box art were based on episode 2, the exact same thing happened for episode 3. So the box art this year was kind of similar to the original one. It had Darth Vader, some kind of lava-y designs, a very Revenge of the Sith themed box art, and there was a big wave push for Revenge of the Sith sets. However, instead of them coming out in the summer, it was an entire wave of winter sets based off Revenge of the Sith. So to kick off this winter wave of Revenge of the Sith sets in 2014, there were quite a few battle packs. The first battle pack is the Kashyyyk Troopers. These sets were $13 each, 99 pieces for the Kashyyyk Troopers battle pack, and it included 2 clone Scout Troopers and 2 normal clones in kind of their Kashyyyk camo style. Actually, that normal clone figure did not appear in the film, which is something LEGO actually just made up, but the Scout Trooper variant did, and it came with a very small version of the Swap Speeder, so another remake of this vehicle, but this was a very downsized version of this vehicle to fit the battle pack scale, but it was still a pretty solid build and one of the better battle pack builds LEGO has ever made. And I actually have 7 of the set personally. In my opinion, our army built this set pretty hard in 2014. Speaking of army building pretty hard, the Utapau Troopers set, which was also $13 with 83 pieces, I also got 7 of. And this set came with 2 normal Utapau Troopers, which were the 12th Clone Troopers, and it came with 2 of the Paratroopers, which are still exclusive to this set to this day. Very good looking figures in an exclusive head mold. And this set's build was not a vehicle for the clones. Is actually a droid tripod or droid. Very interesting because normally these battle packs come with a small vehicle for the clone troopers, but this one in particular had something for them to fight, which actually, kind of helped with the name battle pack. So that was actually pretty cool on LEGO's part. However, for battle packs, I don't think it gets much better than the next set we're going to talk about, which wasn't really a battle pack, but it kind of was. I'd say it's a pseudo battle pack, and that was the Battle of Saleucami, a $15 183 piece set. So already a great deal right off the bat. This set came with a Bark Speeder and a Bark Trooper, very cool exclusive clone. It also came with a STAP, a single trooper aerial platform that had a battle droid on the back. It came with an additional battle droid figure, 2 super battle droid figures, and a piece of terrain for the battle droids with a small barricade. You could put the STAP on the piece of terrain. It was kind of loosely attached, and the speeder itself had the brand new spring-loaded launcher, which was brand new at the time when these sets were coming out in 2014. You could shoot the spring-loaded launcher, it would knock off the STAP from the little terrain build. It was an awesome play feature, and this set was actually like a little battle scene with great playability, lots of pieces, tons of figures, good builds all around. This was a fabulous set for $15. I love this set, and I wish LEGO did more stuff like it, if I'm being completely honest with you. It's now time to kind of skip some sets. I'm going to skip straight to one set that's different from the rest, and then I'm going to very briefly run through all of the remakes from 2014. So the next set we're going to talk about is the $50 439 piece set, the Droid Gunship. This set included a new mold for Chewbacca's head. This was the first time Chewbacca was ever remolded in LEGO form. He had some more printing and they changed him from reddish brown to dark brown. Pretty cool figure, but at the same time, I kind of prefer the old version of Chewbacca. And the Droid Gunship itself, this was the first version ever based off the movies. We did get one in 2008 from the Clone Wars. This one was based off Episode 3. Specifically, it also came with one of those Scout Trooper figures as well. And kind of like the Droid Tri-Fighter, they tried to make this a vehicle and you could put a battle droid inside the quote-unquote cockpit, but in universe, this is just a big droid ship. Now, the rest of the 2014 sets are pretty much all remakes, and I'm going to run through them here real quickly. For $25, we had Anakin's Jedi Interceptor, the first remake of this ship from 2005, so that was pretty good, the yellow version. Also for $25, we had the V-Wing, which was the first Republic version that they made. The original one came out in 2006. They had the Imperial one in 2011. This one was the Red Republic version, and slightly better than the 2011 version. We also got for $25 the Vulture Droid, which was now a standalone set instead of coming with Anakin's Jedi Interceptor. For some reason, this Vulture Droid, like the Droid Starfighter and like the Droid Gunship, they tried to make it a vehicle and put a figure inside of it, which just makes no sense. Besides that, it's a fine design, but it was very oversized, but it did come with a very cool Neimoidian Guard exclusive minifigure, and I actually got 2 of this set. Also for $25, so 4 $25 sets from this way, which is pretty hype, we had General Grievous's wheel bike. Great wheel bike design, used a big transparent piece in the middle, all brick built, great details, came with General Grievous and Obi-Wan. Who did not come with, though? Boga. No Boga in this set, and Boga has still yet to be remade in Lego form. For a little bit more, at $30 in a retail exclusive, we had the Droid Tri-Fighter. This was the third version in Lego form, the second version based off Revenge of the Sith. The other one was based off the Clone Wars. That one came out in 2010. It had Buzz Droids and it had a very cool exclusive Palpatine figure. And then the big set this way that was revealed at Comic-Con in 2013 was the $60 AT-AP that came with Commander Gree, a great minifigure, and it was a very nice design. It had a lot of pieces for the price, and it's just an ugly vehicle, but LEGO did a good job making an ugly vehicle look like the thing from the movie. So there you go. Those are the rest of the remakes from 2014. There were no Revenge of the Sith sets in 2015, but 2016 we had a few more remakes. We had Obi-Wan's Jedi Interceptor for $25. This is the first time that this vehicle itself was packaged by itself. Previously, it only came in that Ultimate Space Battle set. This is the first time ever LEGO made it its own standalone set. For $30, we had the Homing Spider Droid. Now, if you listen to the episode 2 episode, this set is almost the exact same as the 2013 version from Attack of the Clones. However, they just added a couple of new stud shooter pieces and switched up the minifigures to be figures from Revenge of the Sith with Yoda, Wookiees, and more accurate battle droids rather than the Geonosius figures from the Attack of the Clones version, but it was pretty much the exact same set, and I completely skipped this set for $30. In 2016, I believe it was also a Toys R Us exclusive. Also that year, we had the Clone Turbo Tank. $110. It included Commander Gree, a Luminara Unduli, a new version without the light-up lightsaber, Quinlan Vos, the only movie version of him, and a small AT-RT build that could fold up and go on the inside of this Clone Turbo Tank, and of course it's the only remake of the episode 3 version. Again, in between in 2010 we got the version from the Clone Wars, but this is specifically the version from Revenge of the Sith, and I have this version. People hate on this set. People really just don't seem to like this set. It uses the castle wheels. It's kind of smaller than the other 2 versions, so I get why some people might think it's a little bit worse than its predecessors, but honestly, in my opinion, I think it's a very good looking design and kind of an underrated set that people hate on for really no good reason, if you ask me. Okay, 2017, we got just one Revenge of the Sith set. It was a $25 282 piece set, Darth Vader transformation. Of course, a remake of the 2005 set and kind of a remake of the interior of Palpatine Shuttle from 2010. Yet again, we get a new version of Wispy Anakin with his limbs missing. You had Darth Vader. Palpatine was also included in this set, and a number of medical droids. This thing made really good use of those Ninjago pieces that can make a circle when you combine a bunch of them. The 2014 Ninjago pieces that came with that like mechanical dragon set. Very cool pieces, very cool shape, fantastic playability. They use a similar mechanism to the 2016 carbon freezing chamber with this to transform Wispy Anakin into Darth Vader. It was a fantastic play feature that worked oh so well, and of course you could raise up Darth Vader and recreate the iconic "No" scene from the movie. I actually gave this set a 10 out of 10 when I reviewed it. I love this set. This set is such a good design. I would recommend this set to anybody. One of the best small playsets LEGO has ever made for LEGO Star Wars. I love this set. 2018, no Revenge of the Sith sets. Okay, move on. 2019, we got a couple more remakes. For some reason, they remade, yet again, the AT-AP. And it's almost the exact same set. They switched up some of the Battle Droid figures and a couple of random things about the design, but it's very similar, and it was the exact same price. So that was kind of a weird waste of a set. For $50, we also got the Droid gunship. Now, this Droid gunship was a completely different design from the prior version. It used a lot more modern, newer LEGO pieces, and it looks very good, but it was smaller. It had like 50 less pieces than the version that came out 5 years prior, but did have some good minifigures, including a really cool new Captain Tarpals minifigure and some cool battle droids. So I liked that set a good bit, and I actually got that set at Walmart for like $19 or something, like a really crazy deal on that set last summer, and I was super hyped to get that set for such a fantastic value. Also, finally for 2019, we had the 20th anniversary edition of the Clone Scout Walker. For the 20th anniversary of LEGO Star Wars last year in 2019, they did a number of 20th anniversary sets, and one of the ones they did was the $30 20th anniversary of the Clone Scout Walker, a direct remake of the 2005 set of the same name, which of course we've already mentioned in this episode is also known as the AT Arty. However, this set was 3 times as much. It was $30. It had 250 pieces, and it is a very big and oversized AT-RT. They also stuffed a little bit more into this set. They included a Dwarf spider droid. They also included a little barricade for a Wookiee and a Wookiee warrior minifigure, and there was a more accurate scout trooper riding on the AT-RT itself. A cool set, cool little battle scene, oversized, definitely, but I still think it's a pretty nice set. Okay. There's one more set we're going to talk about. Now, if I made this episode in a few months, there'll be quite a few more because they're actually releasing a fair number of new Revenge of the Sith sets this summer, including Anakin's Jedi Interceptor and General Grievous's Starfighter. But those sets have not been officially revealed yet at the time of recording this episode of Brickology, so we aren't going to talk about them here today. 2020, though, in the winter of 2020, we got the Duel on Mustafar, a $20 small playset of that final battle scene. And it's very similar to the 2012 version that came with Anakin's Jedi Interceptor set. Has the droid, the platform, you can stand the 2 figures on that. It has representation of the lava lake, a little bit of representation of the big structure that's fallen to the lake, but it's very downsized. It has a cool play feature where you can kind of flip it in and out. However, it used way too many red pieces, not enough orange pieces, so the lava looks a little bit funky, in my opinion, but it did kind of have a cool play feature where you could spin around the platforms and kind of have your figures duel, or you could also launch the figures off the platforms. You could launch lava everywhere. Lots of good playability, a good price for $20. I remember I actually ordered this set off Kohl's.com. Very oddly, I got this set like super early off Kohl's.com, which was kind of weird. I got this a couple weeks before it was released. I'd never ordered anything from Kohl's in my life, and it's a good little set. It's a pretty good little set, but aesthetically speaking, it definitely could have been better, and I would love to see LEGO remake this scene in a very big playset form rather than just a very small representation of this iconic lightsaber duel. Wow, that was a lot. There's a lot of stuff to talk about with LEGO Star Wars sets based off Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Brickology. I hope you learned something. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you're watching on YouTube, comment and tell me your thoughts. If you're listening on Spotify, you can find me on Instagram, shoot me a direct message over there, or find my post about this episode and comment there to ask any questions or just give me feedback. Any and all feedback is super helpful for this podcast and this account. Thank you so much for listening. And while you're at it, you can find me online. I post daily on Instagram. I have the aforementioned YouTube channel. I have a Facebook page you can like. I'm on Twitter. You can follow me on there at LegoLee329. And also, if you really love me and you're super cool, maybe consider supporting me on Patreon. Any donation, like $1 a month, goes a long way to having more awesome content like the podcast you just listened to. Thank you all so much for listening to today's episode of Brickology. That was a mouthful. My mouth is full of saliva. I am ready to sign off and get to editing this episode. I'll hear from you guys next week. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you guys later. Peace out. Bye-bye.